Welcome, everyone, to today's session of Managing Your Finances During Cancer, Money Myths, 10 Myths Debunked by Certified Financial Planner Rick Fingerman. This program is hosted by the Blum Resource Center. Over at the Blum, we are grateful to Rick for this continued partnership. The recording of this session will be posted on our Blum YouTube playlist and our Blum Digital Resource Center. For those of you watching live, if you have any questions related to today's program, please feel free to utilize the chat feature throughout the session. At the end of the session, we will use your questions in the chat to moderate a Q&A. If you have any other questions or would like more information about resources and programs offered through the Blum, please visit our website at www.dana-farber.org/resource center or email us at blum_center@dfci.harvard.edu. Thank you all for joining us. I will now pass the workshop over to Rick.
Thanks. Welcome, everyone. This is a series of how to manage finances during cancer treatment. So we can advance to the next slide. So who am I? I'm the guy holding that little trophy. We had won an award. The Financial Planning Association of New England, in partnership with Dana-Farber, developed a program back in 2008 to provide financial coaching totally free, pro bono, to patients of Dana-Farber and their family. So if you or anyone you know that's a patient of Dana-Farber needs some help financially trying to figure things out, you can talk to your resource specialist or your social worker, or the last slide has some information to connect with me directly. We can get you connected and help you out. And just as a little disclaimer, this is informational, educational only. It's not meant to be specific legal, tax, or financial advice or investment advice by any means. You want to seek out a CPA or a certified financial planner, or again, be part of this program and we can get you specific information to your situation. So the money myths, the 10 myths debunked. Let's see what the first one is. Zero interest credit cards are awesome. Well, they can be. So just a little primer on how they work. If one has credit card debt on credit cards currently, most likely their interest rate is much higher than 0%. It could be 10, 12, up to 30%. So zero interest cards are a way to attract people to consolidate those cards onto this zero interest rate card. That's only for a period of time. It's usually for, could be 6 months, up to a year, maybe a little bit longer. Once that period goes away, the interest rate jumps from 0 to whatever their current rate is, and it could be close to 30%. So you want to be really careful to make sure that if you do something like this, that you can have those cards paid off, the zero interest card paid off before that introductory rate of 0% goes away. They also charge anywhere from 3 to 3.5% on the balance of the amount being transferred to that zero interest card as a fee, and they'll add that fee onto the card. So again, it's more on the credit card. So again, they can be a great vehicle for someone that doesn't have a lot of money on credit cards, and they can definitely pay them off before that goes away. So yeah, basically it's you're taking a zero interest card, let you transfer that balance onto that new card, getting 0%. But again, that period is a small period. That year goes by fast. So if you don't have a plan just to set up to pay that off quickly, you could be in trouble once that goes away because your rate could be higher than your old card. So again, things to consider. 0% applies to transfer purchases of both. If you miss a payment, that rate can jump to 30%. And there's that 3 to 5% charge on the balance transferred. So again, you want to make sure that you read all the fine print before you're doing something like this. I don't need an estate plan if I'm not wealthy. Well, an estate plan, if we go to the next slide, is basically not just for the wealthy. It is a plan to really protect you if you became disabled or you passed away, to make sure that your estate passes the way you want it to pass, that you're taken care of the way you want to be taken care of. It can save you money and time and taxes. And again, lets your wishes be known. And there are several documents that are part of an estate plan. Not everybody needs all these, but if we hop to the next slide, we'll see that list. So this, you've heard of a will that basically says what your wishes are. A healthcare proxy lets others know, medical people know what your desire is if you can't speak for yourself, for your care. A durable power of attorney is a very powerful document that allows someone else to make decisions based on your finances. They can do things like sell your house or refinance your house. They could file your taxes. They could access a bank account. There's lots of things that a durable power of attorney can do. A living will is just what your desire is at your death, basically, or before you pass away, really, of how you want to be on life support and things like that. And a trust, offers more control. You might have minor children that if they're 16 years old, that you wouldn't want them inheriting a large sum of money. So a trust allows you to dictate how those monies would transfer to minors, for an example, and do other things as well. Number 3, everyone needs life insurance. Well, let's go to the next slide. So life insurance can be very effective to provide for people that are dependent on your income. So if you have small children, if you have a parent that you're taking care of, life insurance can be a really powerful tool to take care of that. But if you don't have someone that's dependent on your support, on your income, if you are gone, then the need for life insurance might not apply, because life insurance can be, pretty expensive. But if somebody needs it, it can really make a big difference. Number 4, it's better to invest than pay off my credit cards. Well, if we go to the next slide, credit cards have an interest rate attached to them other than that 0% one. And some people are paying up to 30% on a credit card. So if you have an interest rate like that and you pay that credit card off, it's like getting a 30% return on your money. You cannot get any other investment guaranteed to kind of do something like that. It's just not possible. So paying off a high interest rate credit card is definitely the way to go. Now, once you don't have credit card debt, then that's a different story. And then maybe it's time to look at investing or saving or developing an emergency fund. But we want to pay those credit cards off, ideally, if we're paying high interest rates. Now, this one we get a lot. It's better to buy a house than it is to rent. And each has advantages. So let's take a look. So the buying advantages, that you build equity over time. You buy a house for $500,000 and at some point it's worth $1 million. Well, now you've made money on that. That's called building equity. You can remodel it. You can, change things around. You can paint rooms. You can take walls down. Your monthly principal and interest payment remains constant, generally speaking, throughout a 30-year loan. It doesn't change. And you can't be asked to leave unless, of course, you get foreclosed on for not paying the mortgage. So there's some security when you actually own a house. But there are some disadvantages as well. You need to come up with a down payment. That could be a lot of money if you live in the Boston area. When stuff breaks, you're stuck. If that hot water heater just stops working in the middle of the night, well, you've got to take care of fixing that. Real estate taxes always increase, so your costs do go up, even though your mortgage payment might not, the principal and interest part. And it's also harder to relocate. So if you buy a house and then you decide to move in 6 months, that's a little more tricky than if you were renting. So the advantage of renting is there's no large payment to come up with, so that's easy. If stuff breaks in the middle of the night, then you call the landlord or the landlady and they take care of it. The credit requirements might be less strict, so you might not have to have as good a credit to rent than it is to actually obtain a mortgage. And it's definitely easier to relocate. If you are renting, you can just give notice. If you don't have a lease, and you can just move to the next place. And the disadvantage of renting is, well, the rent can increase, which most likely it does. You can't make changes without approval. You can take walls down and do things like that. You might not be able to have pets. That could be a big issue for some people. And you don't build equity. You're just paying rent and you're getting a place to stay, but there's the advantages as well. Number 6. I don't need an emergency fund. I have credit cards. Well, we run into that same problem with the credit cards too. We don't want to build those up and not pay those off. So an emergency fund is something that's used strictly for emergencies. It's not for going on trips and things like that. You really want to have between 3 to 6 months of expenses in an account that's a safe, secure account, like a checking account, savings account, a CD, something like that. And this is money for if you're out of work, if the transmission, dies in your car, if your dog needs an operation out of the blue, or maybe you had to attend a funeral that's out of state, you've got to come up with money. And most people, if they don't have an emergency fund, they're using credit cards to take care of this. And that starts that whole process of, now I've got this huge credit card bill and I can't pay it. And the interest rate just keeps growing and growing. So ideally, if once credit cards are gone, we want to build up that emergency fund. It's really recommended of 3 to 6 months of expenses. Number 7, I'm young. I don't need to think about saving for retirement. Well, that's not always true. If we go to the next slide, if you have a job that has a retirement plan and they have a company match, you might have heard that phrase, you have a 401k or a 403b, and you put money into the plan, then the company will match that. Well, if you don't put money in and get that company match, it is leaving money on the table. So it's free money. You definitely want to do that, especially if you're young. And starting early allows you to save less. If you're 25 years old and you want to retire at 65, well, you have to put away a whole lot less per pay period or per month than if you were 55 years old, because then you have a shorter time horizon. Some plans allow for emergencies. So if you need to take money out for something, you can. You can even take money out to buy your first home, for an example. And you'll be glad you did, because again, time goes by pretty quickly. And if you wait until you're in your 50s and 60s to start putting money away, it's a lot harder. Start early. And debt is bad. Well, generally speaking, that's probably true. Let's look at the next slide. There are two types of debt. There's good debt, I think, and there's not so good debt. So a mortgage is good because, again, you're building that equity. It's giving you a place to live. Education is good, I think, to have some debt there. You don't want to have $1 million in debt probably, but because it allows you to earn more income, generally speaking, when you have certain education. So that's not a bad thing. If you're doing an energy improvement in your house, that's not a bad thing. That's probably good because you're saving money and saving energy. Car loans, not as good because you're paying again those high interest things on a depreciating asset. A car doesn't go up like a house in value usually. And credit cards definitely not so good because these rates can be pretty high and it's hard to get from under them. One thing that's not a bad idea for everybody to do, and you can do it for free, is if you go to this actual site, this annualcreditreport.com. It's the only true, free, legitimate site that allows you to get a credit report so you can see if there's any mistakes on there. It doesn't give you your score, but you might see credit on there that has been paid off and is still on there, or you might see something that doesn't even belong to you. So it's a good idea to do that at least annually and get information on that. I think this is it. Oh, my will dictates who receives my money. This is something that people think, like if my will says, I'm going to leave everything to my cousin Billy, and I'm going to leave my motorcycle to my Uncle Fred, and I'm going to leave my IRA to my sister. Well, not always, because a beneficiary designation on the following actually supersedes your wishes on your will. So if you have an IRA or Roth IRA, or again, that 401k, 403b type of account at work, or life insurance or an annuity, and that beneficiary designation says one thing, that will generally supersede whatever your will says. So we see a lot of mistakes when someone gets divorced, for an example, where they have an ex-spouse on an IRA or an insurance policy, and they got remarried, and now that other spouse, if something happens, is disinherited. So really want to get a good look at beneficiary designations to make sure that they align with your estate plan and your will. Getting a big tax refund's a good thing. Well, it feels good because it's like getting that big check, right? That people can use to go on vacation or do something with. But as we see, it's not always the best thing because when you get a large tax rate refund, it's really the same as giving the IRS an interest-free loan for that whole year. So it can be a good idea for people that that don't manage the money well and they feel that they need this forced savings. And it's kind of like a forced savings account that you'll get after you file your taxes so you can potentially pay your bills or do something like that. But generally not a great idea. And that's it. Any questions for me? Here's my information. You can send me an email and I will get back to you again. If you are a patient or family member of Dana-Farber, happy to connect you with the pro bono coaching program so you can get help in all these types of areas. And yeah.
Thank you so much. I'll leave that slide up if anybody wants to take any of that information down.
I think that was the fastest we've ever done one of these.
I know. I have a question myself, actually.
Sure.
So going back to the last slide about a tax return, what do you generally recommend people use those for? Like, let's say they're bigger, like in the last example. What would you recommend?
Yeah, so if somebody does have credit cards that haven't been paid off, it's not a bad opportunity to say, hey, I just got $2,000 back on my taxes. I'm going to put that on my credit cards to pay that off. Because again, it's better than investing if you're paying 20 or 30% on a credit card. Yeah. The other thing, if you don't have a lot of credit card debt, it could be an opportunity to fund an IRA or a Roth IRA. So you're actually saving that money and putting it away for later on in life.
That makes
But
sense.
a lot of people do use it for things like going on vacation or, buying something, so
A shopping
I've
spree.
shopping spree. Yeah. I mean, it's all good, but there are better uses for it usually.
Mhm.
And they might not be as fun, but long
Mhm.
term, it's going to save you a lot. If you can pay off a $2,000 credit card, you might be saving $10,000 overall because of the interest.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Rick. As always, this was very
Oh,
informative.
happy to help.
We love this partnership with you, so stay tuned for more coming from Rick and the Blum. Like I said earlier, you'll be able to find this recording on our YouTube playlist and our digital resource center. All right. And thank you.